I got involved in the jewelry business when I was 13 years old. I started sitting next to a jeweler, and the repair work was where I gravitated to. I was fascinated by it and still am to this day. Almost 40 years later, I'm doing repair work and design work. My father went to work for a local jeweler in New Haven. He was a sales associate, so I tell everybody that me and my father got into the jewelry business at the same time. I was 13, he wasn't. And like I said, I gravitated towards that back area where the repair work was being done. I was fascinated by it. Shannon Jewelers was established in 1979, 1980. And so he went to floor, I went to the repair shop. And for 32 years, I did most all of my father's repair and design. Shannon Jewelers closed in 2014. I reopened under my name, Stephen Shannon Jewelers, in June 2017. And we're just keeping on the family tradition. And in fact, we're right next door to our first original Fort Wayne location. We still do things pretty much the old school way, and with our custom design, we literally hand carve every piece to our customers' specifications. Starts with the conception and then going to a hand carved piece. And when we say hand carved piece, we're literally carving that piece out of wax. They are tubes of wax or chunks of wax that are specifically created for the jewelry industry. And it starts with him, cutting a slice of wax off and start literally carving using specific tools to get the design into the wax that we want that will eventually be part of the end product. It starts with several different types of tools in carving the specific designs that we want, the angles that we need, and creating settings for the diamonds and gemstones to go into. And then they have a chance to review that wax design, that carving, and say whether they want us to proceed or not. And so it all starts with a chunk of wax. Once it's done and the piece is created in wax, then it goes into what we call a burnout process, where we literally put it into a flask and fill that flask with plaster where that wax mold is in. And it goes into a kiln, and for about 5 to 8 hours, that kiln gets hot and it burns that, what we call burnout, and the wax is removed. It's, pretty much disintegrated. It melts away, it evaporates. Then after it's all done there, it goes into a casting process where we pull the flask out of the kiln and we literally melt the gold down and we pour it into that flask. Then that becomes the piece of jewelry. Once we get it out, it's rough, it's got a big chunk of metal on it. We cut all that off, we finish it out, we polish it up, we start setting our stones, and then we deliver it to the guest after it's all finished. To create a design, depending on the level of intricacy, it could take anywhere from a few days to a couple weeks. We have some designs and creations that take 4 or 5 hours. We have others that take 30 hours. Just depends on the level of intricacy, what all we're doing, how many stones we're setting, and the placement of those stones. Once we put that flask in the oven to do what we call a burnout of that wax mold, it's about an 8 to 10 hour process there. The finishing is another 5 or 10 hours. So we've literally done custom design from drawing to the finished product on the guest's hand in 48 hours. It's one thing to be able to walk into a store and see someone that is going to sell you all these pieces that are already made or mass-produced overseas, or even in our own country that are mass-produced. So you don't have that one-of-a-kind unique aspect. You buy a ring from this company and you go out on vacation or your honeymoon in California and you think, oh, look at my one-of-a-kind piece, and 20 people are wearing that same ring. We will literally have the one unique piece, one of a kind, made specifically for you. Customers, they don't want to buy just something that's pre-made and what they call a cookie cutting program. They're looking for a custom. They're looking for that one unique piece that defines their relationship or their friendship or their family members, the mother's rings and the family jewelry. It's all very sentimental, very emotional. A lot of the larger stores that people go to these days, consumers are seeing things that there's no sentimentality there, there's no emotion. It's all about what's in that showcase and how can I get it on their finger quickly and I can get my commission. No one here works on commission. What we do is very artistic. It's something that is almost more artistic than a lot of the other types of art out there, because it is so intricate, because it is so personal, because it's in precious metals, because it's very specific. You know, when it comes to creating something, we gotta kind of be able to think outside of the box and come up with designs that, you know, are unique. And it's not easy to do. They've been making jewelry for a while. We go back to the Renaissance period and see some beautiful vintage pieces that were made, and it even predates that. So when to actually come up with something unique, that's where working with our guests and asking those questions and picking their brain about what they're looking for, then we can kind of get towards something that is actually one of a kind, a unique piece. It helps to keep that allure of jewelry so popular, because it's not something that is easily just spit out. It's like going to buy a car. There's not too many companies that build the car for you. They build a bunch of them and you buy them. Where that's exactly what we do. We create something from the concept, the idea, to a finished product that you can hold in your hand, that you can wear, that you can show to others, that you can pass on to family members, which keeps that tradition alive, which keeps that history, relevant. So, no, it's definitely, that type of industry that a lot of people don't realize has so much history to it. It goes back 1,000 years, even longer than that. I've worked from one side of the country to the other, and I've learned from and worked with some of the best jewelers in the industry. And that's where we kind of impart that information onto the guests. We pick their brain, we ask questions. What is it you're looking for? Is this the kind of design you want? We have models here that we can show them. This is the kind of design work that we can do. So it's about listening to our guests. It's about asking the right questions and not being afraid to let the cat out of the box, letting them know that, this is how it really is done. If the ring needs sized, for instance, that's where we come in, that's where the repair end comes in, is we're sizing those rings down. The repair relates to the custom in the fact that we are actually doing it on site, whether it's repairing a chain or repronging, rebuilding the prongs, that are replacing settings. The settings are what holds those diamonds and gemstones in place. The fact that we're taking someone's time-treasured piece, restoring it to original condition, or building something for them, this is not something that machines can do. This is something that's very technical. It's a skilled trade that not many people have, or you hear about on career day, for instance, in school. We try to reach out to those people, to the young kids, and say, hey, this is something that you might be interested in. All of the people that work here at Stephen Shannon Jewelers are, in fact, jewelers or in training to become jewelers. And that's also what I love the most about, passing on what we know. So it's something that I fell in love with when I was a young kid, and today I'm just as much in love with it as I ever was. So it's just carrying on that tradition and working towards that skill trade that I've always, always learning, always evolving. It's always been my biggest passion. It's something that I gravitated to with the design, with the repair, the intricacy of it, the technicality of it. It's just something that, has always appealed to me. And 40 years later, still does, which is amazing. Typically people are looking at retirement at my age. That's not going to happen. I'm going to probably die at the bench. So that's what we love to do. That's what I love to do. and hopefully we'll be passing this on to my children. It's a family business. You know, my daughter works here. My son, even though he's 7 years old, he works here. You know, my daughter started younger than I did. You know, she was 10 years old when she started this, and she's, you know, a jeweler and very knowledgeable as well. And we just want to carry on that tradition and provide people of Fort Wayne with that staple.
For more information, visit StephenShannonJewelers.com.
Arts in Focus on PBS Fort Wayne is funded in part by